right, next up we have OpsGuru from UC Irvine.
Good evening. Long day. Everybody getting a little tired? Need to stretch? So, when you go to the doctor, what's the worst thing about the appointment?
Waiting.
Thank you, waiting. You wait in the lobby, then you get brought into this little 10-foot by 10-foot exam room where you get to read 3-year-old copies of magazines in which you have no interest. It's frustrating for the patient. It's also frustrating for the medical staff because they actually want to do good by you, but they don't always know which patients are where, what's the status of each patient in each room, and so they're sort of having to guess what to do next. And it actually is very expensive because this is the timeline for a typical doctor's visit. Notice the large areas of red. Wait, we got a laser here, right? Yeah, see, look at that. Large areas of red. Those are times when that exam room is non-productive. It's a wasting asset. The times here, and maybe when you have a nurse or a medical assistant in contact with the patient, that's when the exam room is producing revenue. So what do we do to minimize the red and maximize the green and blue so the exam room is producing revenue as many minutes out of the hour as possible, and so the patient gets in and out as quickly as possible, improving their satisfaction, and so the doctors and nurses feel like they're taking better care of their patients and their satisfaction improves also. So UC Irvine Medical Center, like almost any big health center around the country, knew this was a problem and decided to do something about it. They developed a couple of prototypes, tried it. At one point, they actually even had a bunch of interns with iPads literally following the doctors and nurses around to track what they were doing and when and how their time was being used. Ultimately, they developed a system that was very simple to deploy. And as you can see here, it reduced patient cycle time by 32%, allowing them to use that extra exam room time to book 11% more appointments, generating 11% more revenue, which was almost $4 million in incremental revenue without having to spend a penny on additional assets, just by getting better utilization out of the assets that were there. And they were able to do 24,000 more appointments in a year. And this was over one very carefully monitored year. The system works very simply. In fact, at UCI Medical Center, every exam room, how many people pitching actually brought exhibits, right? See? Every exam room has a little badge reader, which is used for security. When the doctor or nurse walks in, they just tap their badge to this. It identifies them to the computer in that room, serving as what's called a single sign-on. Now what we do is we recognize when that badge happens that a doctor or nurse is now interacting with the patient, and we can say there's interaction stopping, and when they badge out, we can see interaction is ending, and use this to track the progress of the patient through their appointment. And the appointment may have multiple interactions. An interaction with a medical assistant to take your temperature, weigh you, measure you, whatever. A nurse to do a pre-interview, a doctor to repeat the exact same interview, because we all know that happens, right? The doctor then looks at you for a couple of minutes, steps out and tells the nurse to come in and do some tests, draw some blood, do what else is necessary. The doctor may then come back in again, and all that time, there's always the risk of you having to wait. So we know, and we make sure the medical staff knows when you're waiting. We do this through what we call the live map. And this is actually an example of a physician workroom at UCI. And looking on this live map, they can see what's happening in each exam room. Closer, it looks like this. And now, whether they're looking on a large monitor in a work area or on a smartphone or a tablet or a laptop, they can see the status of every patient in every room, know the medical staff, and can then make informed decisions about where they need to go next. That is tactical information that helps the doctors and nurses make real-time decisions about which patients to visit. In addition, we accumulate data over time that show supply patterns and demand patterns throughout the day and throughout the week. And over time, we can see things like there's too many patients coming in on Tuesdays, and there's not enough staff. And through some simple analytics, the management team can shift supply and demand so we smooth things out over the week and minimize wait times all the time. So the analytics allows them to make strategic decisions about staffing levels and about appointment scheduling levels. A little bit of a review of the entire market. There are 22,000 large medical systems in the country. About 2,000 of them have these kinds of badge readers already installed. Could we work in the others? Yes. But the 2,000 large systems that have these are the low-hanging fruit for us, and that's all we're targeting initially. And of those, if we can just get 3% share in 5 years, we're going to make a very nice living and a very nice return on investment. I think I have that in this. You know, I do so many of these, and I forget which version of the deck I sent. I think there's a financial summary in here. How will we do in terms of competition? There are other kinds of systems that track patients through their appointments. However, they each, well, this is a really old system, so nobody wants to use those anymore. But there's a software system, and there are systems that use intelligent badges. The issue with the intelligent badges is they require the installation of sensors throughout the facility. That's expensive, it's disruptive. The badges are expensive. They need to have their batteries charged or replaced. So it's very expensive, and actually they don't have the functionality we have. The software also is very dumb. It doesn't actually track the patients through their appointment progress. It just simply knows somebody started and somebody ended. It doesn't actually know what happens in between. So we provide the most functionality, and we do it at the lowest cost. The system started, as you can see here, in 2014, deployment in 2015. That's when the metrics were done that I showed on the earlier slide. 2016, we actually won an award from the California Association of Public Hospitals. And in 2017, we actually won another award from Vizient, which is a large consulting and advisory service to the nationwide medical industry. So this already tells us that the system works. In addition, based simply on those two awards, every one of these institutions has contacted UC Irvine saying they heard about it, they want the system. We're now in the process of contacting all of them and trying to schedule deployments for them. We're going to have 3 different methods of selling. Initially, we're going to do direct sales because it's going to take us a little bit of time to figure out how to train a channel and get them set up. So ultimately, we want to be able to do channel sales, but initially, we're just going to do it direct, and we may do 1 or 2 partnerships also to help with some demand generation, and some of those conversations are already underway. We actually have 4 sources of revenue. The primary source of revenue is a per exam room fee charged the first year, and then a smaller per exam room fee charged every year thereafter. So it is a SaaS model with nice recurring revenue. In addition, occasionally we may have to do some professional services. We want to minimize that, but if a particular organization needs additional help rolling it out, we'll be able to provide that. And finally, what may actually be the real secret is once we start accumulating this data from medical systems all over the country, we're going to have standards of practice. How long does an orthopedic visit take on a Saturday versus a Sunday, in the north versus the south versus the east versus the west? We'll have data that will be very valuable so that every healthcare provider can evaluate how well they're doing against standards for the country. That's the team. I'm Jeff Greenberg, CEO. I've actually been licensing technology from UC Irvine as a living for 10 years. My most successful venture is a company called Hyperwall. Anybody who's been down to UC Irvine to what's called the Cove and seen that giant video wall, that's actually one of my companies. That company I grew into a global multi-million-dollar business, and to this day it has $150 in paid-in capital on the cap table. So I did that very capital efficient without taking in any outside capital. This time, though, we're going to take a little money in. All right, so there are the financial details. You can see here, it doesn't take a lot of these systems. It's a very high-priced system to get us going, ending up with 15 million in cash at the end of 5 years with a very small initial investment of a few $100,000. That's it. Any questions, or should I ask one? Who wants shorter appointments? Okay, now your turn. Yes?
Do you have any sense of what the impact of customer satisfaction would be?
So when this was done, the impact of patient satisfaction on reimbursement was just getting started. UCI did do some metrics on it, and it increased. I don't remember the number. I'm not going to guess, but it did increase absolutely because they were getting them in and out faster. Yes.
So 9-to-1 ROI for the hospital.
Yes.
300-ish for a system in, and they can build then another 3 million incrementally per year.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
Now, that was in a controlled environment at UC Irvine. Have you benched that or tested that against other hospitals that have expressed interest? Is there anything that you see that would really deviate from the sort of...
There's no expectation of that. We are currently in pilot and 2 departments at UCSD for about 2 months. So it's still a little early to do quantitative projection based on that, but we'll have projectable results in a couple of months.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes?
So it sounds like the product's been ready for the last 2 years. What's been going on for the last 2 years?
So what was going on was, it was not a product, it was UCI developed it for themselves, and then I was introduced to that team late last year. So that's when the commercialization effort starts. Got 5 seconds left, one more. All right, get the hook, here I go. Thank you.